When planning the road to success, there are a few steps to keep in mind. Identifying and solving the cause, facing and embracing change, goal setting, and being accountable. We'll talk about this today on Sustainable Success with Chris Salem. New and healthier habits lead to prosperity in all areas of your life and business. Now, here's your host, Chris Salem.
Welcome to Sustainable Success. I'm your host, Chris Salem. Welcome. If this is your first time here, we want to welcome you here to Sustainable Success Show here on the Lisbon platform. Again, we've been on this platform now since the beginning of this year, and we've been around for a long time. Yes, over almost 8.5 years. It's hard to believe. Started this party back in May of 2017, and we want to thank and appreciate those listeners that have been with us since May of 2017. We are committed each and every week bringing in subject matter experts from all areas of business and life, sharing their words of wisdom and insights to help elevate you and your business to the next level. If there is any new content for any reason that we have not covered over that time, which I would find hard to believe, but it can happen, feel free to let us know and we'd see what we could do to cover it on a future show. Just reach out to our team here at chris@sustainablesuccess.net. That's chris@sustainablesuccess.net. We also encourage you to follow us on Spotify, Apple, also YouTube audio version, and our Facebook page at Sustainable Success 2017, giving you now more options to listen to this show each and every week on demand at any time. And you can go back even and listen to shows that took place 5 years ago, 6 years ago, even right back to the beginning. Yes. So you have access to that at your fingertips at any of those different channels to gather that content. Our show is being brought to you today by Alumni Direct. Alumni Direct is a new social media community platform dedicated to bringing alumni together from all different generational types and an opportunity to meet new people for the first time. Now, it is a membership program taking out all the noise out of social media. You get to generate genuine and authentic relationships with the people you choose to interact with. If you'd like some more information about Alumni Direct, go to alumnidirect.com. That's alumnidirect.com. Well, we got another great show lined up for all of you today. You know, we're at a point in where we are where we have to be all in. So what does that mean? Well, when we have to be all in, you have to be all in to whatever you're aspiring to do, whatever you're aspiring to create in your life, in your business, and, to avoid burnout as an example. Well, we're at the right person here today that is going to be sharing insights on her all-in philosophy and helping you, wherever you are and whatever you're trying to do in your life and business, to do that same. And our guest today is Ali Glaser. She is a certified executive coach, dynamic speaker, master facilitator, and author of All In, the 28-day reset, a daily commitment to being at your best. And as the founder of Ali Glaser Executive Performance, she helps leaders and teams elevate their energy, confidence, and results through her all-in Masterclass and coaching programs. And you're going to learn more about how you can learn about these programs and where to contact Ali later in the show. So don't go away. And without further ado, we welcome Ali Glaser to the show. Ali, how you doing today?
Hey, Chris, how are you? I'm great.
Doing great. Awesome to have you here. And we always like to start the show with the backstory. What brought Ali here to kind of share with the world, share with businesses alike. What is it about being all in? What got you to kind of just step up and be that go-to person that's sharing, the wisdom of being all in?
I think it's because of how I've lived my life. Frankly, this is all born out of my own personal experience. It happens to be backed by science, but it really evolved from realizing sort of how I used to be and how I've evolved as a leader, as a parent, as a partner, as a person. And it sort of became my passion to share it with other people. And so I like to tell a story. I think I might have shared this with you before, but it really illustrates sort of where I used to be, having a busy career, having a family, and sort of how I've progressed in how I show up. So it starts with a story about driving when I was 17 years old. I got my driver's license on the morning of my 17th birthday in New Jersey, and uh, drove home with my license with my dad, who had taken me that morning to the DMV, and couldn't wait to like say, thanks so much, now get out of the car so I
gotta go
can,
see friends.
I gotta go drive to school. And I was a January birthday, so I had I was one of the first people in my grade to
Yeah.
get my driver's license. So I can't even, like, this is like, that's why we're talking about it, how many 30 something years later, because I remember driving, it was about 15-minute drive. I remember exactly where I was driving. I actually live not far from that same road right now. And I even remember the song that was playing. It was Prince's Little Red Corvette. Now, granted, I wasn't driving a little red Corvette, don't get me wrong, but I felt like I was. I'm driving, I'm feeling the freedom that one feels when they have this new driver's license. To me, I'm also, as we get to talking, a lot of this is rooted in who I am and my core values. And one of my core values has always been independence. And that license made me, and having it was a little used car I bought, that made me feel like I was completely independent. I felt on my game. I felt freedom. Just this feeling that there were so many possibilities awaiting me and I could do anything. That's how I felt that morning. And it would be many years later that I realized that that was probably the embodiment, the beginning of how I define feeling all in. Because when I talk about being all in, it means to me being engaged, energized, and confident. That's how I strive every day to show up. There was another drive that was about 10 years from that first one we just spoke about. And at this stage, I'm in my late 20s. I'm driving to a speaking engagement for work, and it's early rush hour traffic, and I didn't plan well, and I was running late. And being of a certain age, this was a time when you couldn't just get on your phone and say, hey, I'm going to be 10 minutes late and feel calm. I didn't have that ability at the time with the technology. So I did what any, stressed out person would do. And I proceeded to bang the steering wheel and yell obscenities and get angry at all the cars around me and angry at myself for not planning well that morning. And I spent about 20 minutes driving under those circumstances, clearly the opposite of engaged, energized, and confident. And I was going to a speaking engagement. I was really concerned about walking in late, feeling embarrassed. So the drive goes on as I just described pretty much until I got there, got myself together, got into the building, and I walk in and it's an empty room. No one had gotten there yet. I wasn't late, as it were. And I realized that I had just spent like a half hour of my life in this state that I never want to feel. Who feels good when they're yelling and screaming and mad at themselves and mad at the car, things you can't control. And I sort of used that as a moment at some point years later, I kind of contrasted those two drives. And I realized I can control how I show up. I can be intentional about how I show up. And that was sort of the beginning of explaining to people what it feels like to be all in, driving 17 years old, feeling freedom, feeling confident, feeling excited, versus feeling stressed out and at the mercy of traffic, right? So I'll stop there because I think that kind of illustrates a little bit about what that means. That's not how it sort of shows up day to day for me today. We could talk about that, but that's a really good illustration of the contrast between one who feels engaged, energized, and confident, and one who lets their, circumstances control how they feel and how they show up. Yeah.
Yeah, I always say that, you can always, the only thing you can control is yourself. And what you can't control is other people and situations. And when we get caught up in the control we can't control, guess what?
Hmm.
We get, you get anxious. So now that, that story just really resonates, and especially when you talk about that being at a young age, you're just starting to drive, 16 years old, and, and it really hits home. So when you think about that, like that from that experience, what you shared, like how has that now changed? Like, even I'm sure you went through other situations as an adult,
Hmm.
and how it shaped you to where you are today, and how that has all evolved into being like looking at everything being all in, whether if it's when you're focused at work, when you're focused on yourself, your family, your whatever else could be important to you.
Yeah. So I really value focus, presence, engagement, connection. And when those things are important to you and you're thinking about work while you're at the dinner table, or you're taking calls, and or you're at work and you're consumed with stuff that's going on at home, like that's I don't want to live that way, right? I don't think any of us do. We want to be able to be in the moment, be present, focused on all that's important to us, but how do we manage that so we can be our best? And that's what really this is all about. It's ultimately about how can we be at our best in all of the different roles we play, in all of the places we are, with the people that we engage with. So the philosophy was really born out of, how do I want to show up, and how can I support people in my role as executive coach, in my role as a leader, as a mother? Like, how can I support people to show up at their best? And so this framework sort of came together because of how I wanted to live.
So you right there, you made a choice. You made a choice that this is how, because you think about it, like most people feel like a lot of times they don't have a choice. Like,
Mhm.
oh, life, I'm just, I'm upset or I'm unhappy because my husband didn't do what he was supposed to do. The kids didn't do what they're supposed to do. My industry is not doing what it's supposed to do. And they just react rather than choosing how I'm going to show up regardless of what I can't control, and that is situations and other people.
Yeah.
And
It's absolutely a choice. And I think it really evolved a lot as I emerged and grew my skills as a leader.
mm,
Because I learned, I studied leadership and really I strive to be a great leader for my team. And I have been around people and leaders who aren't aren't choosing how they show up. And so the impact that that has on the people around them. And so when you choose to show up at your best, when you do all of the things that you need to do, that's the self-awareness and intentionality piece that I can speak about. But when you make those choices to do the things that help you to be at your best, because let's face it, we all I don't everything is not roses, like we all go through life and we have ups and downs and better days and worse days and good night's sleep and bad night's sleep. That all impacts how we show up. The difference is, and this is what I take really seriously as a leader, is despite all of those things, how am I going to show up for a team meeting, for example, even if I didn't get a great night's sleep, and not bring the team down, right? So there's this balance with, we talked about core values earlier a little bit. I mentioned one was independence, another is authenticity. It's another of my core values. So this isn't about just faking it all the time. This is about how can I, like, what do I need? I've literally asked myself this question. I actually, interestingly, asked some friends of mine one weekend. We were a few coach friends of mine after we were certified as coaches, we became really close and we had a weekend together and we were sort of workshopping ideas. And I said to them, well, don't you all know like what you need to be at your best every day? And these were very smart, very evolved people. And they sort of looked at me like I was like, what are you talking about? And I said, no, seriously, like I actually have a list in my head of like what are the 3 to 5 things that put me in that space where I can show up at my best for myself and
Yeah.
for others.
Yeah.
And that's sort of where it came from.
Wow, that's fabulous. And I love that. And so when you think about, all in, you know, Ali, I mean, all in is going to have an impact, like it's going to impact your personal life, that could be for yourself, your
Mhm.
family, your spouse, partner, people you work for, people that work for you, your peers. How important is it when, well, maybe you'll cover, you could fill us in how you do that, but how important that you have to do this for yourself first if you're going to be an example and be a resource for others to do for themselves, like to get somebody else on your team, whether if they work for you or work with you, to now see that and decide that they're going to choose to be all in, regardless of what's beyond their control,
Yeah,
especially when it comes to burnout and stuff like that.
yes, I think that I try really hard to model this behavior. It's never going to be foolproof. Like I said, we all have days, but I really strive to be a role model for not only folks that I work with all day long, but for my son, for example, right? So I have a 21-year-old son. This is about the choices we make, how we choose to be intentional about our lives. This isn't about dieting or, everyone has to go to the gym if they want to be all in, but it does have to do with how we take care of ourselves. And that's physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, like all of those things play a part. And so I, like I said, this all evolved, like the work that I'm doing in this area, the book, all of the things that I've put out into the world have much more to do with how they really evolved from how I live. And then, so I didn't say to myself, I want to be a coach. So what's going to be my thing? Let me create this. It was more like, wow, this is kind of how I've been living. And this is something that I can share with people. How that's something that I can bring to them to help. Because ultimately, I'm about how do I help support people to be at their best, whether that's in leadership, in life, in family, at work. That's what all of the things that I'm involved with are really all about at their core.
Love it. I know I want to go into some of the areas that we're going to cover in the second segment. We're going to break this down. I know we got less than a couple of minutes here, about a minute and a half before we got to go to break. Anything else that you want to add or sum up what you shared so far? I know you shared your story, but just again, just talking about the importance of all in. And I know you'll probably go into some of the details here in the second segment. Anything you'd like to sum up for the listeners, what you shared here?
Yeah, I think that when people even just maybe even when they read like the name of the podcast today or the name of my book, like the all in has this, it could have a tendency to make people think it's about doing more. And it's less about doing more and more about the intentionality with which we move through our lives and our work.
I love that. So this way, you don't have to chase, you don't have to constantly push, and pull, but just knowing that you're being it, and you're not just sitting around, of course, but you're allowing yourself to be, like to be
Yeah.
present, what you said earlier, and it's through that clarity and focus that we can see the opportunities disguised in the challenges, and results can't transpire unless you have an opportunity, and you can't have an opportunity if there's not a challenge.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Well, I know we got more to come, everybody. Wait, we are just hitting the tip of the iceberg here with Ali Glaser here about all in. Yeah, yes, you're going to be finding out more about how you can learn about this philosophy through our masterclass that you'll get some more details on here later in the show. So please don't check out. Stay here. We got more to come with Ali Glaser. All in. We'll be right back after the break.
What is balance? It's being true to your purpose and not being distracted by shiny objects, surrounding yourself with family and loved ones, nurturing your spirituality, maintaining healthy balance of emotional and physical wellness, and being present in the moment. Chris Salem creates awareness about unblocking mindset barriers for sales professionals, business leaders, entrepreneurs, and all types of people to have sustainable success at the next level. The solution evolves out of the problem or challenge. The issue is that many people and businesses manage the effect but do not address the root cause. You now have an opportunity to live your life and operate your business in the solution rather than the effect of your challenges. Schedule a time to chat about your goals and the person you desire to be by going to ChristopherSalem.com. We have group consulting calls, one-on-one, and other programs to assist you. It will be the best thing you do for yourself to see how sustainable success is possible for you in your life and business. Join us at the next level. Visit ChristopherSalem.com.
When it comes to business, you'll find the experts here. Voice America Business Network.
You are listening to Sustainable Success with Chris Salem. Send an email to Chris at ChristopherSalem.com. Now, back to Sustainable Success.
Welcome back to Sustainable Success. If you're just joining us, we're talking about Ali Glaser, subject matter expert in the area of performance, both on a personal and professional level. We're talking about all in. Are you really all in? And what does that mean to you? Well, again, we encourage you to go back and listen to the first segment of this show. A lot of great information that she shared. And then she'll be recapping some of the things she'll be sharing here in the second segment, back to what she shared in the first segment as well. So, Ali, I guess with an all-in process, you know, anytime you have a process, there's got to be some kind of formula to that in some way. And talk about the formula of what being all in is.
So again, all in, as I define it, is showing up, engage, and feeling engaged, energized, and confident in our relationships, in our work, in our personal lives. And the formula for that, because that doesn't just happen, right? Like, so it's really about intentionality, and it's intentionality, and it's self-awareness, and it's self-care. So when you have the self-awareness to know what it is that fuels you, that's the self-care piece, and then we're intentional about infusing those things into our lives, and that we're equally as intentional about ridding ourselves of those things that drain our energy, right? So that's what this is about. It is about understanding ourselves in a way that we know, wow, when I do X, Y, and Z every day, where I put these 3 things into my routine, and those 3 things could be anything for any person. They don't have, there's not one set. Like I said earlier, this isn't about diet or exercise. It might be. For me, exercise is definitely and that's what I call my all-in checklist, is those 3 to 5 things that we can identify for ourselves. This is what I do in my masterclass and my workshops, is help people walk through their own process of identifying what those things are. So if
I can relate to the exercise. I do it I do resistance training 3 to 4 days a week. Well, 4 days a week. I walk every day, and then I do Tai Chi every day.
Yeah. Now, there's a couple types of people in the world that I've identified, right? There's oh my God, please don't make me work out every day. Please don't. I'm going to fail at that. Don't make me do it. And then there's I feel so terrible because I missed my workout today, right? Like that can be true for the gym. It could be true for people who are like, I need my coffee, I need my alone time, or I need to meditate, or I need time to read in the morning, or focus, or do deep work on, build that into my calendar. Whatever it is for each individual, the idea is not for that to be prescriptive. It's for it to be theirs. their personal list. Like I said, I call it the all-in checklist. Like that's what I was mentioning at the end of the last segment when I said I had a group of friends who are smart and dynamic and evolved. And when I was coming up with this idea of the checklist, which was kind of what came out of that conversation, they sort of looked at me like they didn't know what I was talking about. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so aware of what I need because I know what fuels me and I know what drains me. And so how do I get rid of all the things that drain me that I can have control over getting rid of, or those that I don't have control over? How do I mitigate them so that they're not, and how do I shift my mindset so I don't let them take over my mental state for the day, right? That all impacts how we show up. So it's really about, so the formula, again, my all-in formula is self-awareness plus self-care plus intentionality, knowing the things that you need to be at your best and intentionally figuring out. That can be over time, creating habits. Like I said, there's a lot of science around habit formation and how we mindset and how we show up. That's all sort of at the root of all of this. So once we are aware of those things, we put together a little checklist, 3 to 5 things. Then we start saying, how do I create the habits to ensure that I'm doing these things every day? Because the idea is if I do, I will be more likely, if not definitely, able to show up at our best and to really be able to, in all seriousness, to be able to deal much more skillfully with the issues and challenges that arise throughout the day.
Oh, that was great. I love that. And when you talk about this process, the formula that you just gave us, somebody now listening says, oh, wow, I gotta do something because, maybe the challenge has gotten great enough that they're ready to take action. They want these results that have eluded them up to this point. But they're feeling overwhelmed and frustrated about how am I going to do this whole process? Can I possibly learn this all at the same time overnight? Is it recommended to go step in like one step at a time and kind of develop a routine from there?
So I think the first thing that I would recommend people do, and this is what we walk through in the workshops and the masterclass and also in the book, is at least start to think about identify what those, even if you start with 3 things. I don't recommend more than 5. Start with 1, but build up to 3 to 5. So identify what are the things, even in an idea. And I bet there are people who are like, and there's no judgment here. It's just, they've not thought about this. They're so busy leading and living and parenting and doing all of the things that they just don't have the time to even sit and think about these things, right? That's why we're so burnt out. That's why for companies and corporations and organizations, adopting this kind of program, frankly, is going to save money because you're going to have people that are less burnt out over time, that are going to be more in tune with what they need and engaged in their work.
So talk about again, so that burnout is just not like, yeah, I heard that word and I know some people that might be burned out, but it's not really, they're maybe not feeling it at that level yet. They're probably burned out, but don't even know it maybe yet. What is the cost of burnout? Like what can that cost an individual, a team, an organization if they fail to recognize where it's impacting negatively across these areas?
It costs the corporate world billions of dollars, frankly, each year, because you've got turnover, absenteeism, healthcare costs, productivity loss. So there's real dollars there that are at risk when you have a workforce that is overwhelmed and burnt out. As individuals, I think that there are people who just live at a baseline of burnout, to be honest. That, like to your point, they don't even necessarily have it defined as burnout or name it as such. It's just they're just always in full gear. They're raising kids, they're going to work, they're dealing with traffic, even working from home has its challenges, right? So, so I think that it's almost like you don't even necessarily know that there's another way to live sometimes when you've been doing this for years. I talk a lot about hustle culture. We have a culture where if you're not busy or doing something, it's seen as, not productive, or you're not successful, or busy is supposed to be glorified, in this kind of hustle culture mentality. I'm like, no to that. No, 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 no. You can be a high performer, super successful, great at what you do, raise a healthy family, and you can do that in a way where you actually feel good about yourself each day. And that's a lot of what my philosophy is really, that's sort of the undergirding of my philosophy. And it's the point of why I want to bring it to so many people, why I'm grateful to have this opportunity to talk about it and share it, because it's not to sell books. It is to help people and organizations. It really evolved. I talked about the personal evolution of, from my own perspective, of how I arrived at, naming it the all-in philosophy and all of that. But really, it was about wanting to help organizations, and really individuals at their core, but organizations are just groups of individuals, right? So helping organizations to be able to engage their employees in ways, and the individuals in ways that help them be successful and feel good about what they do, and be able to go home and feel great about how they're living their personal lives and how they're managing all of that, the flow of work and life and personal and all of the things that come with it. So I started out by thinking about it from a leadership perspective, which is that culture starts with building a culture like that, a culture of self-care, and a culture where people feel engaged and inspired by what they do. It's an individual thing, but it happens at an organizational level.
Absolutely. And I guess it doesn't matter if it's top down, bottom up. I mean, always top down is the best, obviously, but nonetheless, it could start with you, because you could control you
That's
versus
right.
somebody else. And you being the example and being a resource is powerful to other people. A lot of times we don't realize who we're influencing, even some people that are higher above us in our organizations.
Yeah.
Wow. That's great. Love what you shared there. What would you like, if companies and even individuals, we're always operating on these short-term objectives. I got to get this, I got to do this, but they get distracted, or the first hurdle or problem that comes along, they react to it. They're not in the moment now. What can they be doing now to like not only see the short term, but even the long term, like how that's going to impact like from choosing to show up when they don't want to show up, but they do it regardless. You don't listen to that stinking thinking. Share any insights to there that you think it could help with the all in that you've been sharing with us.
So when I would talk about burnout prevention, and we're talking about the cost to the business, I look at this as a strategic imperative. So if for the business and frankly for the individual, this isn't a nice to have. We sometimes package it that way, and we think it's soft, right? I talk all of it. Don't get me started on the term soft skills, because to me that's just like those are the human skills. And this, being able to embrace a philosophy like this, it's not technical. There's nothing technical about it. It is all about our emotional intelligence. It's all about our ability to navigate challenges. And you don't read this book or embrace this philosophy and suddenly you're like, it's all good. Like there's no challenges. No, there's always going to be challenges. What this allows us to do is to show up with clarity, with focus, with this sense of confidence that I'm clear in my thinking, I'm well rested, I'm able to navigate for myself, my personal daily challenges, for my team or for the organization that I lead, whatever it is that you're involved with, when you're embracing this philosophy and you're truly living it, it just makes all of those things, all of those challenges easier to navigate, because there's also a mindset piece to this, which we've been talking about. And it's rooted in a positive framing. It's okay, I've got a challenge. I'm equipped to handle it. I've got confidence. I've gotten a good night's sleep. All of these things are wrapped up together, frankly.
I mean, just great insight. So I always look at, this isn't a race. It's like a marathon, right? Everyone's going to be, at a different pace. They might be at a different level, but nonetheless, they got to keep moving forward. And that's not, again, sometimes life gets in the way, but like you said, we can't be always saying we're busy. We have to say, okay, is what I'm doing, is it moving me forward? Is it moving my tasks forward, personally, professionally? Any insights that you want to share that you talked about with the formula earlier, and anything? And I know we got 4 minutes, but we could always, carry on after the next break, that you could share with the audience that can help them there, like to make this process, more, not that it's easy, but just that they're going to keep moving forward and not give up.
So it's funny that you talk about the marathon, because one of the things that I talk about in a lot of the work that I do is that, so to your point, yes, all of this is marathon-like insofar as it doesn't happen overnight. This is, I've been honing this for years, right? Like I didn't wake up one day and just say, I've got this. Like there is absolutely a habit formation, like it needs to be something that you embrace over time and work on over time. It's a muscle. It's like, back to the gym, right? Like this is a muscle that we're building. And, you go in the first week and you try to embrace this formula or this philosophy of mine. And it's like, you got the 5-pound weight. I've been doing it for a long time. I've been honing it. I could lift more than 5 pounds of it, right? So it's like we're building a muscle. So, but I will talk more. I think I'll save it for after the break, but I want to talk about the difference between the sprint and the marathon, because I really do think that that's an important piece to what I refer to when I talk about the philosophy.
Yeah, we could definitely do that when we come back. And I know we got a couple more minutes, well, till the break. Yeah, anything you want to sum up what you shared, Ali? Anything you want to just, add before you get into the difference between the race and the marathon?
Yeah. I think the summary piece for this really is about, this is an individual challenge for people, a challenge in the best way, right? Like take the challenge. But it has great impact organizationally. So for our business leaders, right? This is something that is, like I said earlier, it's a strategic imperative. Well, we can't say this is something that we don't care about as a business because we're worried about our dashboard and our KPIs. This is part of that. This is what allows our employees to have the best years, to have I say that because I was talking to a client this week who is looking at his year-end numbers and saying, I'm about to have the best year I've ever had. And he's been working on building this philosophy into his way of life for the last several years. We've been working together. And it wasn't about the numbers for him. It was in some ways. That's awesome. We all want to make our numbers, and he knocked them out of the park. But he did it in a way where he felt all in. He developed that checklist years ago. He knew how he would show up at his best if he infused certain things into his life. And now he's looking back on an incredibly successful year in business, but also in the way he showed up for his wife, for his children, his family, everyone around him.
I love that. And like you said, I always like what you just shared. What I took away from is I'm never going to strive for balance there, because balance is like, balance would be like, like if you were on a seesaw, physics wise, that would be require a lot of energy
Kind of
for it.
elusive, the balance
It's
theory.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
hard. It's yeah, it's teetering, and that's where I always strive to be. I find that harmony. I'm never going to be perfectly balanced, but I'm going to be in
Hmm.
harmony with myself, my family, my wife, my colleagues, my alliance partners, my clients, whoever, whatever that
Yeah.
may be. And you're never going to be able to do everything for everyone at the same time, because that's where
Right.
you feel stretched. And I know you're going to get into more of the stuff about the marathon versus the race here shortly. We got to go to break, everybody. When we come right back, we got more to come with All In with Ali Glaser. And again, if you have any questions, you'll be able to address. You feel free to. You'll be able to get Ali's contact information to send her any questions that you may have, and you could always reach out to us, and we'll make sure that she gets that information. We'll be right back after the break.
What is balance? It's being true to your purpose and not being distracted by shiny objects, surrounding yourself with family and loved ones, nurturing your spirituality, maintaining healthy balance of emotional and physical wellness, and being present in the moment. Chris Salem creates awareness about unblocking mindset barriers for sales professionals, business leaders, entrepreneurs, and all types of people to have sustainable success at the next level. The solution evolves out of the problem or challenge. The issue is that many people and businesses manage the effect but do not address the root cause. You now have an opportunity to live your life and operate your business in the solution rather than the effect of your challenges. Schedule a time to chat about your goals and the person you desire to be by going to ChristopherSalem.com. We have group consulting calls, one-on-one, and other programs to assist you. It will be the best thing you do for yourself to see how sustainable success is possible for you in your life and business. Join us at the next level. Visit ChristopherSalem.com. Voice America is on LinkedIn. Connect with us today. You are listening to Sustainable Success with Chris Salem. Send an email to Chris at ChristopherSalem.com. Now, back to Sustainable Success.
Welcome back to Sustainable Success. We are here with Ali Glaser talking about All In. Our show is being brought to you today by Alumni Direct. Alumni Direct is a social media community platform dedicated to bringing alumni together from all different generational types. Now also features a section for groups for professional athletes. Yes, for you professional athletes that are transitioning into everyday life. Maybe you are retiring from the game now into everyday life, whatever that's starting a business, buying a franchise, going to work in another career, whatever that may be, you don't have to do it alone. You get to do it with other athletes that are doing the same thing to make the transition more seamless. If you'd like some more information about that part of Alumni Direct, check them out at alumnidirect.com. And they also have a podcast around the area, From Athletes to Entrepreneurs, headed up by Rob Finkelstein. He is the CEO and founder of Alumni Direct. So again, you want to reach out and find out more about the podcast and that section around athletes, feel free to check out alumnidirect.com. And that's alumnidirect.com again. So Ali, just great information. And we were going to talk about here in this segment about, the concept between between a like a rate, like if we're doing a sprint versus a marathon, and and how do we approach this in terms of the all in and that harmony that you were talking about earlier. What does that look like? To some people, because some people might be looking in, I'm going to sprint my way to it, or I'm going to take one step at a time, but I'll get there.
Yeah. So a lot of the work that this centers around is rooted in energy management. And I've studied for a long time the work of Tony Schwartz and the Energy Project. And so when I talk about burnout prevention and self-care, I'm always referencing their work insofar as how do we manage our energy because it's less about how we manage our time. Frankly, our energy is restorative and renewable, and our time is finite. So if we focus more on not the hours we have in the day to get everything done, but how we refuel ourselves with throughout the day and throughout the week, that's where we are able to sustain high performance in a way that we're showing up at our best. So I always like to talk about how they've referenced the sprint versus the marathon. And in terms of embracing a philosophy and building habits, absolutely, it's a long game, right? We're not going to do it overnight. We're not going to be able to say today we're going to do these 3 things every single day, and starting tomorrow, some of us maybe, but the majority of us are going to have, to build those habits and that muscle, as we talked about earlier. But when we talk about how we move through our day, I'd like to talk about the sprinter, because so much of our day it's just filled with meetings and the whole busy, right? We're all busy, so we're doing a lot of different things, and we get physically tired, like when you're running a marathon, like when you're sprinting. But when we think about sprinters, if you picture them on the track, and I'm actually picturing like a relay race, right? So really strong relay racers, what do? They're not doing the distance run that our marathoners are doing. They're doing quick bursts of energy, exerting themselves to the fullest, maximizing what, their training to be as quick as they can. And then what do? They stop. They grab water, they towel off, they regulate their breathing. And a few minutes later, they go out and they do it again. So the part of that we want to build into our day-to-day is the refueling that they do in between sprints. Because so many of us are moving through our day as though it's a marathon, but we're not stopping like the sprinters do to refuel. And that's really the key to managing our energy, is to say, all right, I'm going to do an hour and a half of deep work, or I'm going to do an hour and a half of meetings, and then I'm going to schedule my day in a way that I get at least a 15-minute break, so that I can, and I don't mean like, again, there's such what's the word? Like judgment around, like, oh, you got to take a 15-minute break there's actually science.
Their own perceptions of
Right.
what they know.
Exactly. But there's science that tells us you're going to be so much more productive, effective in your zone when you take that 5-minute break, 10-minute break. Maybe 15 minutes is a little too extravagant, right? Like in our corporate world, but 5-10 minutes to just refuel, whether that's water, how many people go through the day and like they don't schedule breaks, they don't schedule time for lunch, these are things that make us less productive and exhausted by the end of the day. So if we're thinking about how we manage our energy, when we talk about our self-care or our burnout prevention or being all in, that's at the root of all of it. So we want to think like sprinters. And when I say we, go all out and sprint like the way that they run around the track, it's not about cutting corners. It's not about like doing shoddy work. It's just about the refueling piece, that our brains really will only be at their best for approximately 90 minutes before we start to fizzle out. And so making sure that we are refueling, and the refueling is also about what we were talking about earlier, which is, what are the things that fuel you? What are the things that drain you? So it's really all connected to how we both structure our days, our schedules, our calendars, and how we infuse intentionally those self-care pieces into our day. and into our weeks.
I love that distinction and how you broke it down. It made it very simple to process. We hope listeners that you took notes. Again, we encourage you to go back, listen to this segment. Great information here. And for any reason, again, if you have questions, you'll be able to reach out to Ali later when she provides her contact information. Ellie, I know you have you wrote a book in this area. We mentioned that earlier in the bio when we talked about anything you want to share. I know a lot of things you probably were sharing today come from or in the book, but nonetheless, anything else that you haven't shared with us today that you'd like to talk about with us here from the book?
Yeah, I think so. The book is really rooted in the philosophy. It tells the backstory, some of which I shared today, of how that evolved and what that means and really what the formula is. Remember, it's self-awareness plus self-care plus intentionality. But what it then does is it provides a self-guided journey of how you can do this on your own. Like, how do I get, you were asking that earlier, Chris, like, how do you get from here to there and infuse these habits and all? So it starts with identifying those things. What fuels you, what drains you, what are your core values? Earlier in the segment, I talked about authenticity and independence and how all of those things actually are connected to what's on my checklist, what's on my checklist, that all in checklist I talk about. It's not a do more list. It's a reminder of what fuels you list. That's what that really is, a reminder of what fuels you. And so when we remind ourselves of the things that help us to show up at our best, it's kind of like if it's not on the calendar, you don't do it, right? You got to schedule things. It's kind of like that. If you don't identify them, you might know them in your head, but you've never really that's what happened with my friends, a few years ago when I asked them that question and they said, "What are you talking about?" It's not that they don't know the answer. They'd just never been asked to articulate it and to share it for that matter. So my book takes you through that journey of identifying those things for ourselves, talks a little bit about the science that I talked about earlier and how we were, the science of habit formation and how we then make commitments to ourselves. What are the commitments that you're going to either recommit to or tweak or make if you've never done it before, so that you can then for about a month work those things into your daily routine, build those habits. So and so there's some journaling, there's some motivation in there, and so it starts out as an opportunity to learn more about the philosophy and its origins, but then how it relates to you personally. And then the third part of the book really is a workbook for people to do this work on their own.
It's key, because so that way, what you read, you got to start applying it because wisdom, knowledge is great, but unless you apply it, that's all it is.
That's exactly right. Exactly.
Oh, it's wonderful. And, and I know you're going to mention how to get in contact with you, but anything you want to mention, the book, can it be purchased on your website, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, that type of thing?
Yes. So it's on Amazon. It's called All In, the 28-Day Reset. And all of the links are on my website, which is at aliglaser.com. So ALIGLASER.com. And the links to my LinkedIn and all of the corporate offerings, my executive coaching packages, how to purchase the book, the trainings and masterclass that I offer, all of that is at aliglaser.com.
Great. And while we're just there, because we can mix up, like what are the areas that they can connect with you on? LinkedIn, your email, anything else that they can
Sure.
get in touch
Yeah.
with?
Ali Glaser at LinkedIn. I have a purple profile picture, the background. So it's easy to spot me if you're just looking up Ali Glaser on LinkedIn. On Instagram, I'm at Ali Glaser Coaching. Ali at aliglaser.com is my email. So just remember Ali Glaser, ALIGLASER. You could find me on all of those channels.
Yeah. Well, everybody, we're going to make sure all of that information is in the, in the show notes. It's all there. So all you have to go to is the Lisbon, our show site on Lisbon. You'll see it there. It's also on Spotify, Apple, as Well, and you can get that information also on the Facebook page at a Sustainable Success 2017. So this way you'll have multiple ways to reach Ali, and you can't use that as an excuse because you didn't have her contact information, because it's all there. So make sure you take advantage of that. Anything else that you'd like to offer or give the audience listening?
This is all rooted in being at our best. That's really what I'm here to help support people do, and how I choose to live. It is a choice. We have circumstances that happen that we can't control, but we can control the mindset with which we show up and the energy with which we bring to our conversations, our relationships, our work. And that's what I'm super passionate about. So I encourage people to reach out to me. I just love connection. So I've now talked about my third core value. So it's independence, authenticity, and connection is my third. Those are my top three. So I love to connect with your audience. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to talk to them via this podcast, Chris. So thank you so much for having me. But I absolutely look forward to folks reaching out, setting up one-on-one time with me, and just even talking about how this landed. Like, how does this feel to be able to say, like, I don't know if I can do this, or it sounds like it was broken down kind of in chunks. That's how it's really meant to be. It's not meant to be this onerous thing. It's really like just one thing at a time, one day at a time. And over time, the habits are formed, the muscle is built, to be able to live your best life, show up at your best, be all in.
Be all in. Absolutely. And just before we sign off for today, want to thank you personally for being here, taking the time out of your schedule to be here, not only from myself, but the rest of the team here at Sustainable Success. Thank you for being here. 15 seconds. Just what is a high impact statement you want to leave this audience to chew on?
When you embrace the all-in philosophy, you truly will be able to show up in a way that will have a lasting impact on the people around you. And it really is all about what's the impact that we're making on people. And I thank you for the opportunity to be here. This has been so much fun.
My pleasure. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much. And again, we encourage you to reach out to Ali. Again, everything's in the show notes. No excuses. Take advantage of the all-in. Learn about the Masterclass. Get the book, so on. And again, for any reason, you can reach out to us and we'll connect you to Ali as well. So again, audience, we want to thank you each and every week joining us here at Sustainable Success. Again, we are committed to your success, both on an individual and team organizational level. Again, if there's any content you'd like to see on a future show, reach out to our team here at chris@sustainablesuccess.net. Till then, everybody, we want to wish everybody a great Halloween tomorrow. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy the weekend. I know it's a wet one here in the Northeast. Remnants of Hurricane Melissa, that's kind of rearing her head here up the Northeast. Thank God, most of it out to the Atlantic. Thank God. But with that being said, we want to thank everybody for being here. And again, share this show with somebody you care about, because it can touch so many lives and help somebody in where they are and where they want to be. Till then, everyone, have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next Thursday. Take care.
Thank you for tuning into Sustainable Success. Be sure to join Chris Salem and his guests every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Time and 3 p.m. Eastern Time on the Voice America Business Channel. Have an incredible week.